One man, 195 countries in a record-breaking 499 days. We're talking about the one and only Northville Native, Michael Zervos, who joins us right now after literally traveling around the world. Michael, welcome back into Studio 10. Have you been able to breathe? How are you feeling?
It's amazing. I'm alive. I'm awake. I'm present. At least I think.
Yeah.
Nicole, thank you for having me. Yeah, I feel great.
Good, good, good. We were so lucky to have you back in November of 2023 before you took off on your travels. So can you remind the audience again, what was the inspiration to go to every single country in the world, breaking the record?
So the goal was to inspire young people, pretty much every person around the world, that they could find happiness wherever, whomever you are. And I kind of combined that idea of storytelling by asking people what is the happiest moment of their life and turning the camera on them to be storytellers of their own life. And I combined that with my love of traveling.
And what a way to do so. And now you have so many stories and heard from so many people, and they've been able to gift you so many things. We have to talk a little bit about this map right here. Speaking of happiness and love and support, this is from your mother, who kind of kept track of your travels over the past year and a half?
Right. So even though she had full, like, her eyes were glued to my social media account at all times to make sure that I was surviving and I was okay and I was eating well, and, you know, all the maternal instincts were activated on that. My parents bought this for me, and she said that every single country that I would go to, she'd put a pin there, and she said I would put a pin in the very last one once I got back.
Aww.
Very heartwarming, right? So that was the last one, back
right
in
there.
Detroit.
There you go.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's so sweet and very supportive. But yeah, along the way, you were asking people about happiness, right? And they were able to tell their stories, but also give you these gifts. Talk a little bit about what we have in front of us.
First thing I have to say is I had a backpack that was, I mean, it was maybe about 40, 45 pounds, right? And most of it was clothes, toiletries. It was essentials.
Right.
So whenever I got a gift, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so generous, but how am I going to fit this into my backpack?
Yeah.
But somehow I managed to fit things in nooks and crannies and all that. So for instance, this is a ceremonial knife that Yemeni men wear, and I got that gifted to me in Yemen. Wow. This is a Pakistani garment that was custom made for me. In the morning they measured me. By the end of the day I had this, so I was wearing it. I love the color. This is money from every single country in the world. It's a nice show and tell project right there.
Yes.
Here's something very special and essential. These are the 3 record-breaking passports. Each of them are still active, 2 Americans and then 1 Greek. Wow. So I can continue traveling on them if I want. We've got my yellow fever vaccination card, which was replaced in Algeria because the first one was dropped in water by a customs security agent.
You know, what were some of the biggest challenges that you saw, and how were you able to overcome them?
You know, fortunately, what I planned to execute, 195 countries, and what actually came to reality was pretty much in line. I mean, about 95% of the things that I was expecting would happen in terms of going from place to place happen. I mean, there were delays, there were some cancellations here and there, in some regions more than others, but every so often there were some issues where, something would get lost. I'd have, my driver's license was stolen very, very early on. So of course there's countries like North Korea and Sudan that weren't open to tourism before I left. So it was completely, I cast my fate to the wind, and I said, okay, if this is going to happen, they're going to have to open up.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the same vicinity of one another, Sudan and North Korea opened up. North Korea only for like 2 weeks.
Wow.
And then it closed back.
Oh my gosh. So you are very lucky, very full of fate. Were you able to find different aspects of happiness talking to all these different people from across the world?
I always caveat by saying that I'm not a scientist, sociologist, anthropologist. It's not an empirical study, right? But I did ask between 2,000 or 3,000 people on and off camera about the happiest moment of their life. And one of the things that I've come to appreciate more, I think, now than ever before, happiness often comes from a sense of awareness of the day-to-day occurrences in your life. The small things that we often take for granted are the things that are deeply impactful for people in war-torn countries or in places that are impoverished or developmentally challenged. So when I would go into countries like, let's say, Ukraine or Sudan, you'd often hear people saying, I'm enjoying this cup of coffee, and I'm like, well, what is the happiest moment? And they're like, think it's like the wind in the trees, and I'm like, wow, okay, this is very Buddhist right now. Right. I would get that commonality very frequently, and I think that's something that we might be able to apply to our everyday life. I hope we don't need to experience war in order to appreciate these very small things that give us richness in life.
Yeah, no, I like that, and we can definitely take that as we go ahead. I know you're going to be writing a book about this. We're going to dive that into a little bit later, because after the commercial break, we'll get more on that travels and play a little bit of a game with Michael, so definitely stay tuned.